Cursed or Coincidence? Exploring spiritual consequences.
Welcome back to Spirita Vivo, to another episode of our podcast. We're your hosts, Vanessa and Norman, and today we've got a topic that's going to make you think.
Yeah, today's episode is a bit deeper, maybe even a little cosmic. We're talking about fate, karma, and what happens when you mess with forces you might not fully understand.
Exactly. Spiritual misfortunes, fate, whatever you want to call it, are there real consequences when you challenge the divine or get too close to dark symbols? Well, let's dive into that. All right, let's dive right in. Fate, destiny, the universe. Big words, right? But let's be real. How many times have we heard people say things like, what goes around comes around, or you can't escape karma? It's practically a life motto at this point, especially after every bad breakup or when your favorite sports team loses.
Yeah, or when that guy who cut you off in traffic gets stuck at the longest red light. Sweet, sweet justice, right? But today we're talking about something a bit more intense than traffic karma. We're talking about serious cosmic consequences. When you mess with the wrong spiritual forces, and suddenly life throws some very hard challenges your way.
Exactly. And we're not just talking about a little bad luck. We're talking about those moments that make you wonder, did I maybe upset some higher power? Did I unknowingly end up on the wrong side of the universe?
Or even more complicated, did I get myself into something I didn't fully understand? And yes, this brings us to Selene Dion. But let's be clear, we have nothing but respect for her and her incredible strength, especially in dealing with her illness.
Absolutely. Selene Dion is an extraordinary artist, and what she's been going through health-wise is heartbreaking. But many people couldn't help but wonder if there's a spiritual connection to her decision to endorse a children's clothing line, which some labeled as satanic. Now, we're not here to pass judgment on her, but it does make us think about the possible consequences of associating with symbols or energies that some might interpret as negative.
Exactly. And it's important that we're not here to speculate on anyone's misfortune in a judgmental way. But it does show how sensitive the topic of spiritual energies can be. Sometimes things happen that remind us there might be more going on than what we can see with our eyes.
Right. Whether you see it as coincidence or part of a deeper spiritual phenomenon, it's worth thinking about how we interact with certain forces. Because sometimes life sends us signals, reminding us to be mindful of the energies we engage with.
Chapter 2. Cursed or Coincidence? Unraveling Spiritual Consequences.
So let's take this idea of fate and cosmic consequences a bit further. We've all heard stories of people who seem to bring misfortune upon themselves after getting involved with certain symbols or spiritual practices that some might call risky. The question is, are these just coincidences, or is there something more at work?
Right? And let's be honest, there are tons of stories out there, whether it's in Hollywood or just urban legends, about people who dabble in the wrong energies and end up facing some pretty serious repercussions. One person we can't forget to mention is John Lennon. Remember when he said, "The Beatles are more popular than Jesus"? That didn't exactly go over well.
Yeah, that quote caused a huge backlash at the time. And then not long after, we all know what happened. Lennon's tragic death. Now, we're not saying it's a direct consequence, but a lot of people wonder if speaking out against something as significant as faith or religion can stir up energies you don't want to mess with.
It does make you think. Was it just bad timing, or was there some sort of cosmic payback in play? I mean, when you challenge big spiritual forces, there's a whole range of possible consequences that might come your way, whether you believe in them or not.
And we see this pattern in so many other cases. There are celebrities, public figures, or even regular folks who've mocked or distanced themselves from spiritual beliefs, and not long after, they face some kind of downfall. Is that just a string of bad luck, or are they tapping into something dangerous without realizing it?
Exactly. And that's the tricky part. Whether you believe in these consequences or not, the stories are compelling enough to make you wonder. Are they cursed, or is it just coincidence? Or maybe it's a little bit of both. Maybe these energies are subtle, and we don't see the connections until it's too late.
It's like playing with fire. You might not believe you're going to get burned, but if you get too close, well, the results speak for themselves. So what do we take away from this? Maybe it's better to stay on the safe side and not mess with forces we don't fully understand.
Chapter 3. Navigating the Unknown. How Spiritual Forces Could Shape Our Fate.
So far, we've talked about some pretty famous cases, but what about the rest of us? You don't have to be a celebrity to feel like the universe has its eyes on you. I mean, haven't we all had moments where something just felt off? Like maybe you were playing with something spiritually risky without even realizing it?
Exactly. You don't need $1 million paycheck to accidentally invite some questionable vibes into your life. It could be as simple as dabbling with a Ouija board at a party or joking about something sacred. Next thing you know, your life starts feeling like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
Yeah, like suddenly every light in your house is flickering, your phone dies at 50%, and your cat is staring into the corner of the room like it's seeing something you can't. Creepy stuff. But honestly, these little moments make you wonder, are we accidentally attracting things we don't understand?
That's the thing. Whether it's dabbling in occult practices, using symbols you don't know the meaning of, or even mocking certain beliefs, these actions could be tapping into energies beyond our understanding. I mean, the universe is big, and who knows what forces are at play behind the scenes.
And the weird part is, sometimes these forces don't show up right away. You could be living your best life, and then, out of nowhere, things start falling apart. Your job, your relationships, your health. Is it just a bad streak, or did you open a spiritual door you didn't know existed?
Right? And maybe that door wasn't meant to be opened. People always think, oh, it's just harmless fun. But what if it's not? What if that little joke or that casual encounter with the unknown comes back to haunt you?
Yes! And that's why so many spiritual traditions talk about protection, whether it's prayer, rituals, or just respecting forces we don't fully understand. There's a reason people have been doing these things for thousands of years. Maybe they knew something we're quick to ignore today.
Yeah, because it's not just about fear. It's about respect. Respect for the unknown, for energies that are out there, whether we see them or not. So maybe, just maybe, it's better to be cautious, stay grounded, and think twice before playing with fire. Chapter 4. Playing it safe. How to protect yourself from spiritual mishaps.
So now that we've explored how spiritual energies might influence our lives, whether you believe in fate, karma, or just plain bad luck, there's one big question left. How can we protect ourselves from these spiritual mishaps? I mean, nobody wants to invite negative vibes, right?
Exactly. I don't know about you, but I'm not about to go messing around with forces I don't understand. It's like swimming in the ocean without knowing what's lurking beneath. Just because you don't see the sharks doesn't mean they aren't there.
That's a great analogy. And yeah, why take unnecessary risks? It's not about living in fear, but about being smart and spiritually cautious. So let's talk about how people have historically protected themselves from bad vibes and spiritual fallout.
Right? One of the most common practices we see across cultures is some form of spiritual protection. Whether it's wearing certain symbols, performing cleansing rituals, or simply saying a prayer. It's like a safety net for your soul, and honestly, I think there's something to it.
Definitely. I mean, think about it. People have been doing this for thousands of years. There's got to be some reason behind it. Whether it's burning sage, using protective symbols like the evil eye, or even just grounding yourself with positive thoughts. These practices have stood the test of time for a reason.
And it's not just ancient history either. Even today, people use crystals for protection, meditation for clearing negative energy, and even feng shui to keep the vibes in their home balanced. So it's not all woo-woo. There's some real belief and intention behind these actions.
And I think it's more about intention than the specific practice. Whether you're lighting candles, meditating, or saying a prayer, the act of consciously focusing on positivity and protection can make a huge difference in how you feel and what kind of energy you attract.
Totally. And hey, worst case scenario. It doesn't hurt to be careful, right? Whether or not you believe in spiritual consequences, it's always a good idea to keep the energy around you as positive as possible. You never know when it might come in handy.
Right. So maybe the best takeaway from this is be mindful of the energy you invite into your life. Stay open, stay positive, and don't play with forces you don't fully understand. It's better to be safe than sorry, especially when it comes to things we can't always see.
Chapter 5. Final thoughts. Trusting your instincts and staying spiritually grounded.
All right, so we've covered a lot today. Spiritual missteps, cosmic consequences, and how to protect yourself. But I think one of the most important takeaways is this. Trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't. You don't have to understand all the energies out there, but it's smart to be cautious.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't always see or explain the forces at work in our lives, but that gut feeling, whether you want to call it intuition, spiritual insight, or just plain common sense, that's something we all have, and it usually knows what's up before we do.
So if something feels off, whether it's a place, a situation, or even an idea you're playing around with, take a step back. Sometimes it's better to stay grounded and avoid messing with things that could have deeper consequences than we realize.
And like we said earlier, it's not about living in fear or being paranoid. It's about respecting the unknown. The universe is vast, and we only understand a tiny fraction of it. So maybe, just maybe, it's better to err on the side of caution when dealing with forces we don't fully grasp.
Yeah, and remember, staying grounded doesn't mean cutting yourself off from spirituality. Quite the opposite. It's about staying connected to positive energies, whether that's through prayer, meditation, or just taking time to reflect. There's a lot of good out there too, and that's what we should focus on.
The world is full of energy, good and bad. But by staying mindful, positive, and open to the right kind of vibes, we can navigate through the unknown with more confidence and peace.
So, whether you believe in fate, karma, or spiritual consequences, it's never a bad idea to trust your instincts and protect your energy. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to live our best lives, right?
Right. So be smart, stay positive, and don't mess with forces you don't understand. And on that note, we're wrapping up today's episode. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the spiritual unknown.
Yup, and don't forget, stay grounded, stay mindful, and as always, we'll see you next time here at Spirita Vivo. Until then, keep your vibes high and your spirit light.